Hi, how are you? I'm Jenny Block, author of Be That Unicorn. I have to tell you how thrilled I am to be here and how grateful I am that all of you decided to be here today too. I have to tell you, even though we've been doing this whole virtual thing for a couple of months now, it's still weird, isn't it? I don't know about you, but for me, doing certain things are always connected to sensory things. So for example, speaking to a group like you, for me would be about the sound of my heels clicking as I walk onto stage. That's sort of how, I know, okay, we're getting ready, now we're gonna start. And now there's no heel clicking. I mean, there's nothing really in some ways. I mean, if you could see where I am right now in my little study, I mean, you can see a little bit of it here, and all of you are, well, wherever all of you are. And somehow still, we're all trying to act, what do we call it? Normal. Like we're pretending while we're on screen, our heads don't itch, or our dogs aren't at our feet, or our kids aren't screaming outside the door. It's just all so strange. We have all these systems in place for ourselves, and suddenly it's like, sorry, can't do it that way anymore. But, you know, I've been thinking about something. I've been thinking about what if instead of saying we can't do that anymore, we can say we don't have to do that anymore. Think about that for a minute. It's kind of magical, right? I don't have to do that. I don't have to put on high heels. I don't have to walk out on stage in a certain way. I don't have to do anything really other than, well, be authentically me, right? So, in some ways, it's all about perspective and permission. And that's exactly what I'm hoping I can give you today: perspective and permission in the face of change. You know, when I first got asked to give this keynote, I couldn't help but think, if all of you were thinking, what's happening? Did the organization I belong to somehow change? Am I no longer working with senior living communities? Am I no longer working in the hotel industry? Why on earth are we going to be talking about Be That Unicorn? I mean, I myself would be thinking, yikes, I'm going to log into this keynote workshop presentation thing, whatever, and there's probably going to be some crazy lady sitting in front of me, and she's going to be talking about prancing and wearing your unicorn horn and how to use that horn and how to support other people and how to prance through life. And then all of a sudden I thought to myself, you know, as crazy as all of that sounds to you, that was exactly how crazy it sounded to me when when I first came up with the idea for this book. But the more that I thought about it, in the outside world, especially now, there's so much confusion and anxiety and hate and division and, just sort of general, what the heck is going on right now, that there really isn't anything we need more right now than to slow down, than to change our perspective, than to give ourselves permission to do things a little differently. And so I asked myself, what would doing that look like? What would things look like if I chose to be that unicorn? Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let me start from the start. Who am I? Good question. I'm Jenny Block. I am a writer and an author. I grew up outside of Baltimore, Maryland. I went to college to be in mass communications because I didn't want to be a teacher like my mom. Remember being 18? And then I ended up somehow in the English department anyway. And I was a college professor. I taught writing. And somewhere along the line, someone said to me, "What do you write?" And I thought, nothing. I don't write anything. I don't write anything at all. I write to my students about their papers. So I went to a writing conference and I met someone there who told me that I should choose on that day to make sure that I didn't leave without getting an assignment. And I thought, what on earth does that mean? Well, I'm not even a writer yet, but I decided to take that on as a challenge. And I met an editor of a magazine, and I sort of cornered him, for lack of a better word. And I said, I want to write for you. And after 3 no's, I got a yes. And that was my first article. It was for Virginia Horse Quarterly. Yes, there is a Virginia Horse Quarterly. And I wrote an article about going on a trail ride, which turned out to be nothing more than a ring ride with a bunch of friends. And from that point on, I realized that I love to tell stories. So I kept writing, and I became a travel writer and a food writer. And I just found that no matter what the topic was, I was always writing about my experiences with that topic. So instead of just writing about, the food that's served somewhere, I was talking about the chef and meeting that chef and what the experience was of being there. And I was doing my best to follow advice that my father had given me from when I was very little, which was to just put myself in the place of whatever I was doing and just swim in it. And then as a writer, I was sharing that swim. So as I got older, I discovered that, well, for lack of a better word, what my mother calls my superpower is making other people feel great about themselves and making other people feel like they too can swim in their experiences. And people would say to me, after talking to you about that idea or that job or that move, I just thought, boy, I just wish I could put you in my pocket and carry you with me all day long. I thought, well, that's going to be a little tricky to do, especially if more than one person wants to do it. So I thought, what would that look like if people could carry me around? Not me, but those ideas that make you feel really great about yourself. And ta-da, Be That Unicorn was born. And when I started writing Be That Unicorn, I have what I think so many writers have, which is that sense of feeling like you have everything to say and absolutely nothing to say. And you have a little bit of that, what do they call it, imposter syndrome, where you think, what am I thinking? Why on earth would I be writing a book? What do I know about anything about anything? But the more that I decided to follow what I was writing about, that is to listen to my own advice, the more I was able to sort of just, write. It's funny because there's an author, I believe it was Alice Walker, who says that she doesn't write her characters, she channels them. I love that. I love to imagine her, any writer, just sitting there and, voices just coming to them. I can't say that I had had that experience until I started writing this book. It was almost as if I would write something and then I would read it and I would think, that's pretty good. Where did that come from? And I would say, you, that came from you. And what I learned from that experience of knowing that that came from me was that that's the authentic me. That's the real me. I remember many years ago, let's see, oh, I don't want to tell you how many years ago now. I was going to summer camp. And I had been going to summer camp for years and years. And when you go to summer camp, or if you go to some place where you go back every year and you see the same people and things change a little bit, but part of the fun of going is that, it's like old home week. You get to be back there in this place where you're comfortable. So we get back to camp, and it was probably the summer between, I don't know, maybe we'd all just turned from 12 to 13, somewhere there in the middle school years. And every year I'd done the same thing, the same big camp trunk and the same camp clothes, just sort of t-shirts and sweatpants and shorts. You could get dirty and it didn't matter. They just got, thrown back in the camp trunk until it was time to pack again for the next year. Only this year, when I got to camp, I started looking around and I felt like I was an alien on a foreign planet. all of these girls that I had felt so akin to in the past looked like strangers to me. They were like teenagers all of a sudden. I mean, I was still this little girl with a ponytail, and heck, I still wore my Girl Scout uniform to school back home. And they had their little cute matching outfits, and they had pictures of John Bon Jovi in their locker. There you go. I just dated myself for you. And they were, well, they were cool. And we got started getting unpacked, and people said hi to me or whatever, but I could tell they were sort of mm, giving me that sideways, how come you still look like a little girl glance. And we sat in the big circle, and we introduced ourselves and talked about how our school year was. Well, I had thought it would just absolutely be the funniest thing in the world if I brought this stuffed monkey with me. I don't know if you remember these. I don't know if they're still around anymore. They're these stuffed animals. They're usually monkeys, but I guess they could be another animal. They have really long arms and legs with Velcro on their hands and feet, and they're puppets. So, you put your hand in the puppet and you put the Velcro around your neck and your waist. So I just thought it was going to be so clever. And I had my monkey and I said, "Hi, I'm Jenny, and this is Harry, and we're so excited to be at camp." Everybody just rolled their eyes and looked at me like, "Oh my God, I can't believe she's in our cabin." And it was that minute, and I didn't know it then, but looking back now, it was that minute that my unicorn light got dulled. Not even dulled, I just switched it right off. I learned in that second that it wasn't a good idea to be me. It was a good idea to be cool. Cool. I wish I still can't define that word for you. But I changed, or I pretended to change. I tried to be cool all summer and borrowed other girls' clothes, and I went back to school and told my parents I couldn't wear that stuff they were buying me anymore, and cut my hair, and I tried to be somebody else. And you know what happened? It failed miserably, because the only thing most of us are worse at being than ourselves is somebody else. And my dad had been telling me all along, just be yourself, just be yourself. People will like you if you're just your happy, friendly, funny self. And so I tried that, and I got laughed out of summer camp. So I tried to be someone else, and that was even worse. And so I went full circle and listened to my dad and went back into my life and was just me. And I just figured, if you like me, great. And if you don't like me, fine. And you know what happened? I felt better than I ever have in my whole life. Now, I know I'm talking to adults. I'm talking to successful adults. I'm talking to adults who are, making their way and have families, and I hope have happy, wonderful, healthy lives. And yet, so many of us still spend so much of our time doing anything other than being our authentic selves. So, being that unicorn is nothing more than shorthand for being yourself. Do you know when you go to a party, or gosh, it doesn't even have to be like a specific event. It could just be like walking into a shopping mall. Remember those days when we went to shopping malls or restaurants or museums or wherever it is we used to go? And there was always that person that you just automatically could tell you liked, that you wanted to talk to. Maybe you could hear their laugh from across the room, or maybe you'd end up in a conversation with them. You might even only share a hi, how are you? But there was something about them. So I sort of went on a quest to figure out what this was. Like maybe this was what cool was. And maybe if I could figure that out, I could even amplify whatever success I was enjoying on my own already. And I thought maybe it was their clothes, except I liked my clothes. And maybe it was just their style. And no, I have, I like my style. Maybe it was their background. Nah, I've had a, pretty varied background, especially now after being a travel writer. I've eaten the things and jumped off the things and seen the things. And then I thought, You are so silly. How could you not have noticed this? They have what you have, they have themselves. The best example of this for me is Lady Gaga. I always say if I could sing, I would be Lady Gaga. Right, most of us would be. No, some of us would be. The ones of us who would be Lady Gaga would be the ones who, instead of at summer camp, when they decided to be cool, if I had stuck with it anyway, if I had kept Harry snapped around my neck and just walked around, Jenny and Harry, and I bet you, it wouldn't be a fair bet, because I know already that everyone there would have been jealous of me when I actually deep down was jealous of them, because they were working so hard. They were literally studying 17 magazine. Remember 17 magazine? That's gone, isn't it? Yeah, they were literally studying it to be that girl, except it turns out that girl, that guy, that person, that it is the person who's true to themselves. Authenticity is the only secret. So I started thinking about what that might look like beyond my personal life, right? So being that unicorn in my personal life meant going to a party and, meeting lots of people and not making myself look like or be like or act like anyone else, because whatever I am was plenty good. But it was about something one step further than that, because it wasn't only just about me, it was about all these people around me. And I sort of started hearkening back and thinking about what my dad was like when I was a kid. And I remember we used to go to restaurants and my dad, oh, hi, how are you? What can I get you? Oh, hello, Sally, my dad would say, reading the waitress's name tag. We would love a round of iced teas. And then Sally would come back with the iced teas and he would say, you are just terrific at carrying those. I don't think I could carry 4 glasses on a tray like that. And Sally would giggle and smile. And I remember as a kid thinking, can we just get some hamburgers? Like, what are we doing here? Why are we having this big conversation with Sally? And then I would watch her move from table to table and see the difference of how she sort of lit up when she was talking to my dad, how she sort of, I don't know, it was like she shone. It was like all of a sudden she had this sparkle to her because someone was treating her like, go figure, a person. And I guess I didn't realize what a remarkable thing that really was until I started seeing him do it over and over and over again, no matter what the situation, no matter where we were, and what that gave back to people. Going to the ballpark and he would see the person who's, dumping out the trash cans and he'd say, thanks, man, I'll try to drink less beer so you won't have so much work to do. Again, as a teenager, I thought, oh, you're so weird, Dad. But as an adult, or as I grew into an adult, I started to really appreciate what it was that my father was giving to himself, which was sort of the joy of making other people joyful, what he was giving to that person, which was just this sort of moment of, I matter, I exist, I'm here, I'm good enough that whatever this job is, I'm going to be great at it. And that's good enough. That's good enough. That's all I have to do is be great at that. And that message has been going on from my dad since I was brand new, since I was a little kid, since they would take us to these museums, which I used to hate, the Science Museum and the Lighthouse Museum and the history of whatever blah 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 museum. And I would be the surly child or the grumpy teenager sort of schlumping along behind my parents. And my dad would turn to me and say, look, this is what we're doing today. You're going with us, whether you like it or not. So I suggest maybe you sort of give into it. Like, find the one thing you're interested in. See if you can count how many lighthouses are blue. See if you can find how many different dinosaurs have spikes versus don't. See how many things you can find that people had in common in the 1700s that we still do now. And I would think, okay, fine. But I would do it. And usually they had to drag me out of those museums. And I learned that whatever the thing was, I could still be authentic to me and still find joy in this thing that interested my dad or my mom or my sister or whoever I happened to be with. And when I did that, I was able to make a connection that I wouldn't have otherwise had, a connection with the place, a connection with the museum, a connection with the things in the museum, a connection with the people. And that was how I started moving through the world. And when I started doing that, I started to wonder, could I do this in the workplace too? Or had I sort of created a system that worked sort of in the social world? Yeah, that's all well and good if you want to go to a party and tell the funny story and be your authentic self. But when we go to work, we have to be somebody else and we have to be the buttoned up version of ourselves, or I don't know, whatever it is, what's the movie Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion? They walk in, hello, we would like the business ladies lunch special, please. I love that line because I love this sort of, it's like exactly the opposite of what I'm talking about, but this idea that somehow there's something that, first of all, that we say business lady, but second of all, that there would be something that these women eat. And if you eat that thing, then you're that person, instead of you're a woman in business, so you're already a businesswoman and you can eat whatever you like. And I'm not saying that I even always follow my own advice. I mean, I go to meetings or events or heck, speaking engagements and wear the thing that I think you're supposed to wear. And then I feel weird. I feel weird because I didn't really want to eat the squid sandwich and I didn't really want to wear the blue pinstripe suit and I didn't really want to sit in the chair. I wanted to, I'm actually happier on the floor. And as long as I was being authentic and I was doing the work and being present and being perfectly professional, then there wasn't any problem unless it was with someone who wasn't feeling equally as comfortable with being authentic. And then it seemed like the more, hopefully most of the time, the more authentic I was, the more other people felt being comfortable being their authentic selves. And then ta-da, it kind of reminds me of like when you're in an emergency situation. You can be like, everybody's, we're all being fancy strangers and we're having fancy stranger drinks at the fancy cocktail party. And that person's my competition, or that person has never liked me, or I don't have anything in common with that person. So I'm just going to do my business person thing, right? Because that's how we're supposed to behave a certain way. And then all of a sudden, all the lights go out and there's thunder and lightning cracking. Maybe there's an earthquake or something. And all of a sudden people are like, are you okay here? Why don't you stand over here with us? Hey, can somebody see if they have a generator here? Hey, why don't you sit over with us? It'd probably be safer for all. What just happened? In that moment, in that emergency, authenticity took over. And I think to myself, what would the world be like? What would our workplaces be like if we all sort of let the mantle down and instead put on our unicorn horn and said, hey, who am I really? Where do I really want to sit? I spent a short time in corporate America with a major retailer in their corporate offices, which I thought would have been a good fit for me because I'm a writer and they were looking for a copywriter. And it was sort of great in some ways because they wanted new ideas and I would write all these new ideas, and some, people seemed to really like them and they actually won some awards for them. And they used to pay these fancy New York ad agencies all this money to write these things that, here was this little contractor in a little cube able to do it. But it was really hard for me because, for example, I like to pace when I write. So I would pace, sort of between the aisles of the cubicles. And I guess it made some people nervous or uncomfortable, which, okay, I was in their space too. So I started just walking in the stairwells. They had giant, maybe 7 or 8 floors. And I would just walk the stairs. And my manager would say, you can't do that. You need to sit in your cube. And I would say, why? And she would say, I don't know. That's what we do. That's what we do. So I tried to sit in the cube. So then I would take my high heels off so I could sit Indian style, sit like a pretzel. My apologies. And then they would come in and say, you have to put your shoes on. And I would say, why? And she would say, I don't know, that's just how we do it. And you can imagine where the story ends. Eventually I got let go because I wasn't a good fit. I wasn't a good fit because I didn't follow, what were considered corporate procedures. Well, I haven't been there in 20 years, probably. I still have friends who work there. And you know what? Half the cubicle walls are down. They have a room, like a playroom where you can walk around and talk or sit on a ball. They have, I don't even know if shoes are required there anymore. Because eventually what happened is that decayed. Like you can't keep people like that. Yes, we need to dress in a way that's, polite and correct for work, but that doesn't all look the same. Yes, we have to be respectful of other people's workplaces. So you pace in the stairwell instead of in the middle of the room. But to take away someone's authenticity means they're not able to do the great work for you anymore. So I wondered, what's the integration of that? And how do we make it so that we can work as a group, we can work with bosses and with peers and with people who work with us, and how do we work with clients? And the very first thing that came to mind was that we have to remember that we don't know everyone's story. We don't know everyone's story. And even if we think we know their story, and maybe we know a lot of it, we don't know where that person is right now. When you're on the highway and someone cuts you off, and I don't know about you, but that makes me crazy. And here in Texas, it's very important that you don't, make a hubbub, because dangerous things have happened here because people get angry and tempers get raised. And I think, what happened there? How did that go from that to that? How is it possible that someone cut someone off on the highway and someone made an impolite gesture and someone pulled out a gun and somebody got hurt or died? And I realized that it's because neither of those people were thinking about where that other person is at that moment. So let's think for a minute. I'm not a cutter offer kind of driver, mostly because I'm a overly cautious driver, which means I don't drive. My spouse always does, as people say I drive too slowly, but I'm a very non-confrontational driver. So it's hard for me to put my mind in the position of the cutter offer, but I think about that for a minute. What if I have a job where my boss is always yelling at me? What if I have a home life where everything's always dumped on me? What if I have kids that are just, having a tough time at school, and that comes out as being disrespectful to me? I'm probably feeling angry. I'm probably feeling out of control. I'm probably feeling like I just want to be the boss of one thing. I just want to be in control one time. And so I'm driving on the highway. Well, you suckers can all wait in line. I'm going to cut you off. And how is the person being cut off feeling? Maybe they're having just as terrible of a day. Maybe they're coming home from a medical procedure or from getting terrible news, or, hey, feeling the same way that person who just cut them off did, that the world is just too much with them and they want to be in control of something. Now you have these two people who aren't thinking about how the other one is feeling, only thinking about how they're feeling and lashing out. What are they actually lashing out at? Not at the cutting off, not at the being cut off, not doing nothing to do with driving or the road. And yet it ends terribly, sometimes tragically. And hopefully in the workplace, we're talking about something much calmer. But let's say we're working in some kind of customer service position, from very specific, like I am a customer service agent, to, in some ways, we're all working in customer service. Sometimes our kids are customers, our spouses, our neighbors, right? We're always hopefully trying to make sure everyone gets what they want and need, and doing it in the nicest possible way. But sometimes people come at us, right? They're so angry about the room or the food that's being served, or how their family member is being treated, or I was in Alaska at Mount Rainier, no, sorry, Mount McKinley, and I asked the manager of the hotel, as I often do, what's the craziest, like, angry customer situation you've ever been in? And he told me that one morning someone called and was angry because they had been at the hotel all week and hadn't seen Mount McKinley because the clouds were covering it. And apparently seeing it is quite limited. I forget what the percentage is of people who ever get to see it, but it's smaller than you might think. And so he demanded that the manager turn on the cloud blowers. And the manager thought for sure the person was like making a joke and was so turning from angry to like funny to diffuse the situation. So the manager sort of like tried to laugh, and the person got angrier and angrier and was so sure the hotel must have a way to blow the clouds away. And the manager wanted to say, what do I look like to you? Like, if I could change the weather, it wouldn't be freezing in Alaska. And instead, the manager said, I wish I had cloud blowers. I wish I could do that for you, sir. I know how far you've traveled. I feel badly for everyone at the hotel now. And I hope that you will look at our list of activities and let me know how I can help you and find something else that will be at least as close to satisfying. And I hope you'll come see us again. And the customer, he said, was a little bit taken aback. I think the customer was ready for the manager to be angry also, and then he was gonna, I hope he knew there weren't really cloud blowers, but he was going to be unreasonable, so the manager would be unreasonable, so then he could yell, and then he'd feel better because he got to yell. But instead, the manager took a moment to imagine what that person's story is. How could you be that angry? This might be their once a year vacation. Heck, this might have been the trip of a lifetime that he'd been saving up for forever. He might have been promising the kids that they'd see Mount McKinley. That was the one thing, and they weren't going to have it. So I try to remind myself that one of the biggest tenets of being that unicorn is to try my very best. Wait, what does Yoda say? There is no try, there is only do. I do my very best to put myself in not in that person's shoes, but in that person's sort of aura, and imagine what it must be like to have those feelings and have this situation put on top of it. I also do an additional trick with myself, which is to remind myself that I also need to remain where I am. I need to stay grounded in the place where I already am. I don't need to escalate. I don't need to get angry. I don't need to take out my day from before on that guy. Can you imagine if the manager, God forbid, had gotten terrible news that morning, or, had 14 customers in a row that were yelling at him, and then instead went crazy? What would that have accomplished? Nothing. And nobody would have been very unicorny that day. Everyone would have been angry and upset and disappointed. And what did anyone achieve there? There have been, a number of times in my own life that I'm embarrassed to say that I wasn't very unicornical, where I understand that's a real word now, so let's all use it and see how real we could make it. I wasn't being very unicornical, and I was doing the thing I shouldn't. I wasn't being where I wasn't thinking about the other person's story. I just got angry. And you know what? The thing wasn't resolved, and I felt all the worse for it afterwards. So I double whammied myself. Years and years ago, when I was working as an actress, I had this director who did this sort of like organic directing style. Part of that meant natural blocking, where they just would tell the actors just, stand where it feels like that character would stand. And I remember thinking, I'm just the actor, you're the director, just tell me. My job is to listen to you, so just tell me. And you know what he said to me? He said, be where you are. Be where you are. And then I looked around and I thought, I'm in a house, set of a house, but I'm in a house, and I'm wearing a tutu, and I'm eating chocolate frosting from the jar off a spatula. I'm a wannabe ballerina who has a sweets addiction in her home with her parents. What would I be doing? I'd be practicing my ballet moves and doing an arabesque with my spatula. And after that first rehearsal, the director was like, "You see how smart I am?" And I said, "Yes, I do." For the first time in my acting life, I didn't act, I just was where I was. And even though my regular life is not about acting like anything, it is about being where I am. And so that's what I always try to do. If I'm, if someone is coming at me and making me angry, I think I'm not angry. I'm not going to be in that angry place with you. So where can I figure out how to meet you where you are, stay in my happy place, and hopefully, you know, bring us both to a happy place and a successful solution. Another thing that unicorns are, and this is what makes them able to do that, is flexible. We have a plan, we have a mission, we know where we want to be, we know where we are now, but we're also flexible because, boy, if this pandemic hasn't taught us anything, it's taught us that anything can happen. Anything, things that I imagine you feel this way too. If this was a novel, I would put it down. If this was a movie, I would turn it off. It doesn't make any sense. There's no way we would be not leaving our houses and wearing masks everywhere we go and running out of toilet paper. But here we are. So, what you going to do? Are you going to be flexible and figure out how to live within this? Or are you going to be really angry and really sad and even more uncomfortable than you already are? There's a quote going around. I imagine you've seen it if you're on any kind of social media. We're not all in the same boat. We're all in the same storm. And some of us are in yachts, and some of us are in dinghies, and some of us are on rafts, and some of us are drowning. That's really interesting. That's all about remembering where we are and remembering where other people are as well. And that's when we can really get things done. That's when we can really continue to be unicornical and also help the other people around us while taking care of ourselves and really coming to the happiest conclusions that we possibly can. That unicorn also remembers that he or she doesn't have to do everything by themselves. When we remember to take people where they are and to keep ourselves centered and authentic, that doesn't mean we can't ask for help. I don't know when that happened. I don't know if it was when we were in school and weren't supposed to look at other people's papers, or when we were kids and we weren't supposed to try to trick our kid sister into doing our chores. I didn't do that a lot. But we don't have to do it all ourselves. We can ask for help, and you know what? Most of the time people are really happy to help. Being that unicorn is about being in the moment and being self-aware enough to know how to continue to stay ourselves, how to take care of other people, and how to be ready to go with the flow, whatever that means at the time. Now, if I was you hearing this for the first time, I'd probably be thinking a lot of things. One of them would be, this is, I don't know, really, can I really do all this? And you know what? Even if I really can do all this, do I want to do all this? And even if I can do it and I want to do all of it, isn't it a lot of work? And you know what? Interestingly, it's less work to be that unicorn than it is to not be. What do they say? It takes less muscles to smile than to frown. That's my metaphor for that unicorn. It actually takes less energy, stress, brain power, resources to be willing to be our happy, authentic selves. Think about how much work it is to be like, okay, I have a meeting with my boss, so I need to remember to do da da da, and I have to do da da da, and if I don't do that, then they're going to be upset. I mean, that's a waste of you that's a waste of your resources. That's a waste of the very reason that you work doing whatever it is that you do. Again, I'm very aware that I am talking to highly successful people who have made it, who are in the places where they are because they did the right things. And now my question to you is, now that you're there, are you feeling the best you can be doing what you're doing? And how can you help the people around you to feel like they can feel the same way, so that then you're just in a room full of happy people? You know, when you go somewhere where, I don't know, I mean, vacation, I guess, is the easy example, but just when you're somewhere where everyone is able, I mean, maybe okay, for me, I think it's a conference in some ways. So when I was a college professor, I would go to teaching writing, I would go to these big academic conferences. And I always felt sort of, well, summer camp, pre-embarrassing summer, a little bit summer campy when I was there, because we were all the same in some ways, right? Like we weren't dressing anyone because we wanted to talk at certain, because we talked like professors and we all, like, you know what I mean? There was this like commonality. And then it'd be like you had to come back to real life and people were like, oh, you're a college professor, guess I better watch what I say. Or, oh, should I put on my blazer with the corduroy? You know, I just, people seemed like they had to like sort of tease or make fun of what my authentic self was because they're not comfortable with their authentic self. And I say hooey on all of that. I would like to do my best to put my best horn forward and to move through the world in a way where I'm going to assume that you're doing your best. I hope you're going to assume that I'm doing my best. I'm going to figure that you're being true to yourself. I'm certainly doing everything I can to be true to myself. And then when you put us together, you have two people who are able to come together and get things done and leave with a sense that nobody lost. There's something sort of overly competitive about the world we live in. And I get it. I get it. In order to make money and be successful and move up, we have to compete in some ways, right? There are different hospitality chains. There are different places where people can live when they, as they get older. There, if you want people there, you have to be better than that guy. But we can all be competing in the same arena, in the same level, and be kind to the people that we're competing with, and not have to be the sinister bad guy from James Bond. The reason that's interesting to watch and funny is because it's the extreme of what we're doing to ourselves. And if I had my magic unicorn wand, it would be to make us not behave that way anymore. So when I started today, I promised you that I would give you two things: perspective and permission. So perspective. I'm asking you now, when you look out at work, at your family, heck, just at the pandemic world and everything that's going on, to choose to prance instead of plop. To hold yourself up, to sally forth, to say, boy, this is the worst, isn't it? Let's just do it anyway, instead of just plopping down. It's kind of, me in the museum with my family. I can prance through the museum and say, ooh, look at all the cool old stuff. Or I can plop and say, this is the dumbest day of my life. And I can guarantee that you will feel better on the prancing days. I am going to recommend that you remember that living horn up, living authentically, is actually easier than living horn down. Even though the first day it might be like, I don't want to be nice. I don't want to put in that extra effort. I don't want to meet the customer where they are. They're being ridiculous, and I want to tell them they're being ridiculous. But again, I can guarantee that at the end of the day, if you choose horn up, you'll be all the happier for it. Your customer will be all the happier for it. And then in the end, you'll actually be more successful, work, home, play, whatever. I'm also going to suggest that you not let anyone else take away your shine. The girls at summer camp took away my shine, but they could only do it because I let them. Now, I was a little girl. It was easy to steal my shine at that point. Lady Gaga never let anybody steal her shine. They created a group at her university of "We Hate Her." That was the whole group, was just to hate on her. And she was like, eh. Now, I know at night, because I watched her documentary, that she cried and it hurt her and it was terrible. But out in the world, she put her horn up and said, you're not allowed to take away my shine. The only one who can do that is me, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do is to share that shine. Things are hard right now. They're hard. Even for those of us who are having an easier time, they're still hard. And the one thing that we can do for people is to put our shine out there, because most of the time people reflect back to us what they see. So if we are kind and friendly and polite to the wait service person, or to the person at the counter, or to the employee who has been less than perfect lately, you will be very surprised at what you get back in return. At least I have been. And I really believe at the end of the day, you'll think, wow, I just turned the glitter on, and wow, I just got showered with glitter right back. So the other thing I promised to give you was permission. You don't need my permission. I know that. You're a grown up, you're a successful adult, you are already making your way in the world. You don't need my permission at all. Except most of us are waiting for someone to tell us that it's okay to really be ourselves, that somewhere inside of us, we're still that 12-year-old who doesn't have anywhere to sit in the cafeteria. And I'm here to tell you that everyone in the cafeteria actually wants to sit with you. They're waiting for you to come to them. They're not wishing you would stay away from their table. So I'm giving you permission to say, yes, yes, I want to go on that adventure. Yes, I want to meet someone new. Yes, I want to take on that additional responsibility. And I'm giving you permission to say, no, I'm not interested in that. Thank you for inviting me. No, actually, my plate at work is already full. No, sir, we don't have another room for you, but I would be more than happy to comp your breakfast instead. I'm giving you the permission that sometimes it can be hard to give ourselves. So you can just say to yourself, you know what, that unicorn Jenny Block, she said that I need to take care of myself, that it's okay for me to say yes sometimes, and just as okay for me to say no. And so I'm going to do that. So you have permission to change your perspective, to change your mind, to change anything and everything or nothing. But you have permission to find your magic, to live your truth, to share your shine, and to just be that unicorn. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And I would be absolutely delighted to answer any questions you might have, from, the theories about being that unicorn to writing. I also write about weddings for the New York Times, which has given me a whole new perspective on what it means to be that unicorn under pressure during a pandemic when you want to have a fabulous wedding. So I'm yours. So let me know what I can do for you.
Hey Jenny, I'm on now. I just wanted to say thank you. Gosh, your personality is so bubbly and uplifting this whole time. I'm just like smiling and engaged. So thank you for that. I had a couple questions that did come through, so I wanted to ask. First question, how do you maintain your authenticity during like those really stressful times, those like times when you're dealing with, upset people, or you yourself are just overwhelmed? How do you stay authentically you?
That is a great question, because that for me is the time when I really do want to slip. And those are the times when I have slipped that I haven't been as proud of. If I'm super tired, if I'm super hungry, if it's just, again, any kind of extra stress on me. So the first thing I do is ask myself where I am. Where are you right now? Do you need to take a minute and have a protein bar? Do you need to say, hey, hang on one sec, I just need to grab a coffee before we talk about this? Do I need to say, self, I know we're having a hard time today. We need to do this right now. And then we can tend to ourselves. So I try to come back in so that I can go back out. And sometimes it's really simple. It's a little, okay, brain, we need to be that unicorn for a minute. And other times it's more physical. It is, I need to, hey, I would love to help solve that problem with you. Let me go run out real quick. And what I do is like, I run out, I go outside, I get a breath of fresh air, I look at a picture that makes me happy or listen to a song, but I try to get back into my unicorn spot. I think that's why we have trouble with things like road rage, because there's no opportunity to come back to yourself. So, for some people, it can be something physical. I wear bracelets and things that I can mess with. I need like a touch point. Doesn't have to be anything in particular. It just has to be a thing that I can say, okay, I'm right here. Everything is okay. We can do this. It's okay to, what was that guy on Saturday Night Live, Stuart Smalley? I'm good enough. I'm proud enough. And gosh darn it, people like me. There's something to be, sometimes I put on my unicorn horn and I say, this is my.
I love that, by the way.
Yeah, this is my.
I didn't wear it the whole time.
Maybe I will next time. When I see myself in the horn, I think that's so silly, and I love it. I love the sparkles and I just wonder who we would all be if we just let ourselves be that. If you walked in my office, you would think the kids lived here, because I like stuffed animals and I like sparkly stuff. I'm also highly intelligent and really busy and smart, and will use my horn if I have to, if you make me. So they're not, I don't know when we decide we couldn't be all the parts of us, but when we're the most stressed, it's hard to remember those parts. So if you need a minute, take a minute. I mean, unless we're talking about literally like careening around on the road, unless you're a heart surgeon, most of us can take 1 minute. Sir, I really appreciate that you're upset right now. Give me 2 minutes and let me work to solve your problem. And walk out and go to your friend and say, ah, and then have a Hershey's kiss, go out and handle it. And then, then that's that. I heard someone once say, if you have to be in a really difficult situation, take it one little chunk at a time. I just have to get through the next 10 seconds. I just have to get through the next 30 minutes. I just have to, it's never everything. Again, unless you're jumping off a cliff or, cutting somebody open or diffusing a bomb, it's never everything all at once. Take a minute. You're allowed a minute.
It's kind of how I feel sometimes at the gym, where I'm like, after work, I haven't ate. I know I need to work out, but I want to eat. So I'm working out and I'm like, 10 more minutes, just 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes.
Exactly. I do that at the gym constantly.
There's an author, I believe it's Anne Lamott, and she talks to her students about having like these huge projects. They're so overwhelming. And when she found herself in the same position, she was writing some huge research project about birds, and her professor told her to take it bird by bird. I love that. Just everything about life, you can just take bird by bird. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying, oh, this is so easy and I'm so happy all the time. And in fact, I've gotten 1 or 2 people who have written not nice reviews about me. Jenny Block's just always so happy. No one can be that happy all the time. And I think, well, then you're not listening very well, because the point is you're allowed to do go in the back and scream. Just don't scream at the customer, because that's, we all know that's not going to get us anywhere.
Yeah, you're being authentically you. You just need to take a minute real quick, collect yourself, and then resume to who you are, right?
Exactly. Right.
I did have another question.
Okay.
We'll have a little bit more time. Okay, so how do you help when you see somebody else who you can tell is kind of wanting to be themselves, but they're uncomfortable and they don't want you? Do you actually like have something you do where you try to help them kind of come out of their shell? Like if you're at a party or wherever it might be.
Yes, it's really simple. Compliment them. I think we have gotten to a really unfortunate place where, I hope this isn't revealing anything inappropriate, but when you and I first got on the call this morning, you said, I love your curls. And I immediately went, like, I just immediately, and it, like theoretically, I don't need your approval, right? But I just felt like, I see you in your beautiful books and you're the boss of the thing today. And of course I want some sense of your approval. And immediately we were together. Oh, you could curl your hair. Oh, my hair is really, we just automatically boom. I think we think we're so different from everybody. And I got news for you. We're all exactly the same. I think in some ways Barney sold us a false bill of goods, like it's not that you're all special. It's either maybe none of us are special or we're all special in the same way. I don't know, but somehow there's a messed up message there. If there's someone in your family, someone at a party, someone in your workplace that is having a tough time with being authentic, I feel like it's part of my role in the world to show them how I like the ways in which they are being authentic. I always say you would never praise a dog for peeing on the carpet because, he'd pee on the carpet again. And yet there are all these things we sort of, I don't know, we praise the wrong things and we don't praise the things where it's like, I like your curls. Like that's so easy. That, like my dad, look at you. I could never carry 4 cups on a tray like that without spilling it. That's goofy, but it's so nice. I feel like we've forgotten how to be nice. Like, I know you don't want to be creepy, like nice shoes, why is she looking at my shoe? Everything in its time and place. But if there is someone who is clearly having a tough time being comfortable with themselves, I try to compliment the things that are clearly authentic to them. And I try to ask questions to get them to talk about the thing. I have a friend whose uncle, I was at some party and he's this older guy and he was just sitting by himself. And I could tell he just, I don't know, just didn't feel like he was in the group. And I don't even know what I said, but I quickly discovered he was interested in woodworking. Well, I don't really know much about woodworking. It's not necessarily like, oh, I love woodworking, but I love hearing anybody talk about anything they love. And in a minute, he was off to the races. So I think it's about finding your way into what is authentic about them, and then saying, hey, I love that. It's not about lying. It's just I love how much you love that. And sharing things about ourselves. Like, I think one thing about wearing the unicorn horn is, well, if she's willing to go that far, then I can certainly wear my, orange suit or whatever, because it's not as crazy as a unicorn horn. The more authentic we are with that person, the more likely they are to be authentic with us.
Yeah, if you personally are showing your confidence goes a long way, and people don't realize just how easy it is to just be confident. But it is a little bit easier once you see someone else, especially someone you care for or you're close with. You want to be just as confident, and then you'll make it happen, right?
Exactly. I mean, they say confidence is the sexiest thing. And I mean the word sexy in terms of like the way we use like great advertising, like something really sleek. We say that's not in the, so I think that's very true. Like as soon as you see not cocky, that's different. That's like
100% different.
Full of myself. But just sort of like, I like my ruffles. So you don't have to like them, but I do. And I'm going to wear them and I'm going to feel good in them. And that's that. So yeah, I think I thought when you became an adult that there was a switch. I feel great about me. And it doesn't work that way. And that's really why I wrote the book, because people said that when they were with me, they felt that way. And I think, again, my dad said, well, this book isn't rocket science. It's not like you invented it, but you sure did a good job of putting sparkles on something that we all need to be reminded of. And I
like the way he said that. That's good.
Yeah, me too.
Perfect. Well, I don't see any more questions, just some, thank yous. And, I definitely can tell that you have made people feel a little bit more comfortable with themselves and better about themselves. You brought the shine, that's for sure. You sparkled it up for sure.
Good. I'm so glad. Well, anyone who is looking for me, I'm just at bethatunicorn.com, and that's actually me. So if you type, like the contact form or whatever, it's not my secretary. I don't have one.
Perfect. So it goes straight to you. We did drop your LinkedIn and website, and your information is on the our websites as well, on your event page. And just to remind you and everybody on that, we're going to have this recorded and it'll be up by the end of the day.
Oh, good.
Somebody else just said you're delightful ! So
thank you.
Lots of positive feels and lots more thank yous. So wonderful. I want to thank you again for your time today, Jenny. I just you made me feel so happy. I can't stop smiling. It's such a great time. So thank you
it's
so
a
much.
perfect day. Thank you all so much. So appreciate it.
Have a great rest of your day and your weekend, and just be well and safe.
Thank you. You too, to all of you. Thank you.